Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
So no, it's not DBA. We are D8A, which for us represents a couple of things. Data, which is the most obvious one. But prior to starting this company, I started a company in Uganda called Africa, and most of our staff is of the African diaspora. So D and the 8 letters of the word diaspora and Africa was kind of where the name was inspired. So with data, what we do is we make working with data easy. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're attempting to do is provide platforms that really simplify the process of working with large, robust data sets, otherwise known as big data. Now, there's a lot of applications for what we build, but the use cases that are most relevant to the news community are the kind of qualitative research aspects. And this is why. Doing research online sucks. There's so many places to go to find information. There's so many places that are unverified. There's so many places that are social. There's communities. There's niche communities. It's just a chaotic mess. And so when you're a journalist and you're looking for information online, you want to explore as many of these places as possible, and you also have your proprietary sources or your trusted sources. But you also need to do this in a time-efficient manner. So I am inspired by the movies quite a bit, and Minority Report being one that is really interesting to me for a couple of reasons. The usability factor is something that people have spoken about, and then just what people are doing with information in this movie is something that we borrow from, which you'll kind of see. So I'm going to skip over this. This is a video of our platform in action. I'll actually go into that actual demo after this. I'll talk a little bit about what we do, but our products are for researchers who want to do qualitative research and analysis using sometimes quantitative data, sometimes qualitative data, but mostly chaotic data. So that includes communities that are in the intelligence space, large NGOs. Prior to this, I used to work with an organization called Ushahidi that does work with groups like the World Bank and et cetera. All of these types of organizations have people within them who are doing this type of research. It's not just the guys at the NSA, it's also the people who are trying to do other things for social good. I heard a lot of questions about business models earlier today. So the way we think about our platform is the majority of big data platforms kind of look at 3 problems. They look at the volume, the variety, and the velocity of data. Our products are open source. So we provide the platform for free, the ability to work with different types of information. And then when you have to get to scale or you have to start doing things really intense, number crunching, that's where we make our money. It's from organizations who are trying to do really complicated things with data. So here's a couple of our products. Just to speak to them specifically, there is MetaLayer, which some people may have heard of before. That was kind of the product that we started with. The problem we found with MetaLayer is that we were building this one big toolbox for lots of different people, and we started to realize it was becoming incredibly bloated, which defeated the purpose of trying to make things simple. So we split it out into multiple products. So there's this flexible UI, which you saw, the drag and drop interface, has a new name. There's it's called Muxboard, and there's geo products. There's a product for surveys. There's a product for kind of keyword and network analysis. And the real benefit to this community is that all of these things are open, they're flexible, they're usable for free, but they work when you really need them to. So this is a project that we did with Thomson Reuters, I think this was last year. They had a series of hypotheses about their archive of content. And what they were looking for was solutions that could sit on top of 9 years of articles that they published, about 60 gigabytes of data, and find patterns and trends, et cetera, buried within. So you could see their glowing statement about us. But what they really found in there was They were looking at terrorists who was killed in 2011. His name was Anwar al-Awlaki. And what they were trying to find is, was there a correlation between the events leading up to his death and how they had covered him historically for these 9 years? They had the same hypothesis about a number of other subjects, which I can't say. But what they were able to do is they found patterns that, had they been using products like this, not necessarily this product, they came to the conclusion that it might help them anticipate things that haven't happened yet. And that's really what the kind of holy grail is in this type of predictive analytics software. This was another project we did during Hurricane Irene. Similar concept, different visualization, different data set, different context. But this was a group who was working to monitor the social media conversations as Hurricane Irene kind of moved inland throughout the eastern seaboard. And what they were looking for was outliers that were not being serviced by service delivery organizations. And they were able to find a correlation between this sentiment analysis and the geographic spread of individuals throughout this region. Again, they're trying to get ahead of the curve so that in future hurricanes, you can send someone or you can redirect service to areas that might get overlooked instead of sending it to the places that are constantly being served. There's another project we're doing right now with Wounded Warriors, where they're doing similar things, trying to service veterans who are using social media channels, et cetera. And what they're able to do is kind of anticipate what type of services these veterans need so that they can serve them better. Again, all of this is for the ultimate goal of trying to get ahead of the curve in terms of servicing people. So here's our team. There's me, there's Matthew, who's our lead developer, Ahmed, who's another developer in Nairobi, and Bahia, who's down in Atlanta. And I'm gonna hop out of this now and somehow hold the microphone while I use the web.
If you want, you can use the other mic as well.
Oh, great, perfect. So I'm going to go to Chrome. So I'm just going to pull this up really quick. I know it's fun watching someone else use the internet. Okay, so this is one of our products, which go back here. I can kind of show you how we think about, again, our product is really more about working with the data. I gave you a couple of use cases. But so if you think about the different types of data you might use on a daily basis, this could be anything, right? I've pre-configured it with things that I use for the purposes of demos, but you guys might have different data sources. It could be server logs, it could be Google Analytics, it could be stuff coming from Chartbeat's API. It could be literally anything. We hook APIs and we make them easy to use. So for instance, here we have Google News. I'll do a search for Tesla. They're doing a lot these days. And over here, I'll do something similar on Twitter. So this is only looking, right now it's only tuned to look to 5 hours as the most recent article on the Google News side, and about the same on the Twitter side. Obviously there's more tweets than news articles, but let's say I wanted to synthesize these data sets so I can do something with this combined information. I would just literally drag and drop it on top. I've got a synthesized data set. Now that's still a feed of information, right? So if someone publishes a new article, it's going to show up in here, and then you're going to see this blink every now and then. It's pulling in new tweets. But let's get into the fun stuff. Let's do something with the information. So we've got a synthesized data set. Let's drag and drop sentiment analysis on top. What this is doing is parsing the data. It's trying to figure out algorithmically whether it's good, bad, neutral. And now I'm going to drag and drop a visualization so I can see what lies underneath. And very quickly, I can see that within the data set, it skews mostly positive. And this, again, is only a snapshot. If we had been running this for, let's say, 9 years, like Thomson Reuters had thought about, you would have the full context. Right now, we've just got a snapshot. But we can start to do comparative things, right? So let's look at another company. I like Ford. I think I heard, of course. Okay, let me do this. Well, let's not do that. Let's say we did do that. So what we could do is compare in two different columns, a competitor, or it could be another subject, something else that we want to dive deeper in and compare one context against the other. Or we could start building different cases for the same theory. But again, this is just one research tool, one way to apply our product in the context of research. And I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to show you one more product, or not. It looks like Chrome is doing something. It never does, which is crash. I should use Firefox. So I'll take some questions now.
So what you just demoed, is that like the basic platform? Like, is that something anyone could have and then they add on to that? Or is that part of the part that people, that is like the paid for part?
So everything that you see in both here and also in the previous deck is all open source. You can just download it. You could go to d8a.com tonight, click on technologies, go to our GitHub repo, and you could find it. We're trying to make it easier for people to install because it's all written in Python, and most people aren't proficient enough to be able to do that. So it's all free, I'm sure. And I mean, it's one of the reasons why, it's one of the things I learned working at Ushahidi is making things free and open doesn't necessarily mean that you can't build a model around it that is scalable. We like to think of, contextually, we like to think of ourselves as being the kind of open source alternative to a company like Palantir, where everything costs like ridiculous amounts of money, and you usually have to, buy it out of a black briefcase, on an airplane over the Cayman Islands.
One of the things that's always been difficult to track down is that there's activity all of a sudden starting to spike around either a specific keyword or a specific location somewhere in the world, and using social media to observe that activity. Do you do any type of monitoring to be able to determine where those spikes are happening? And can it kind of run in the background and have an alert push to say, oh, something, all of a sudden there seems to be something spiking in this particular place or around this particular keyword?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The way we think about our interface is, we're not trying to anticipate people's use cases. We're just trying to give them the building blocks to make their own use case. And so we have seen individuals use our product to kind of do that, where they set up alerts and they kind of drag and drop their way to some sort of micro algorithm. It's built on other algorithms, which are the macro algorithms, but they built the case for what's going to happen the way they want it to. And the real benefit is that they don't have to know R. They don't have to know how to program in Python, or they don't have to do all of that. They can just point, click, drag, and drop their way to this kind of insight. But again, using really big amounts of data. I mean, I think the largest we've seen run through the platform at once was about 6 terabytes of information that someone pulled into the platform, and then they were just kind of analyzing it and slicing it in different ways. The other thing I should mention about the dashboard, and there was a couple of other products that I didn't go into, but they can all exist. You can have multiple things set up on the same data set. So let's say you have one humongous archive of real-time, of historic data being updated by real-time data. The challenge with doing that in one interface is that there's infinite ways of looking at it. So you can actually create as many different versions of that dashboard looking at that one data set. Or you could do it with completely different data set, right? But you're not limited to do this like one time, this one Twitter feed, this one archive, whatever. You can take that one thing and look at it infinite ways, theoretically. Exactly. And it's all collaborative too. So you could have, she could be analyzing one part of the data set, you could be analyzing another, et cetera.
Could you explain in a few more sentences how to set this up? How difficult is it? So it's open source, that's good. But like what kind of data I need to have? What do I need to know to be able to use your tool?
So, that's a tricky question because it's like, you want to be able to use the tool regardless of what you know. That's what we're trying to enable. Some people would say that if you don't know what you're doing looking at data, you shouldn't do it at all. And I just don't buy that, right? It's like, just because I'm not a carpenter, should I not use hammers? No. Like, I think that the tools should exist, and then you should enable people to do better things with them, smarter things with them, and hopefully the tool will help inform their knowledge of the subject.
What I meant, so let's say I have a data source, which I think there is something in there. So I have a hypothesis of something in there. So, and you have an API who grabs this data. So, like, what do I need to know? Like, do I need to know how to customize the API or my data set? Or how is this all linked together? What kind of knowledge I need to make it work?
Yeah, so what I would say is that it helps to start with the why, like what are you looking for and why. And if that doesn't lead to how you're going to look at your data, then organizations will work with us and we'll help them brainstorm around ways of kind of diving into their data sets. So it's usually news organizations are pretty good at asking themselves the why, usually. And other organizations like the World Bank, the UN, those types of organizations, we'll work with them to try to come up with some questions that make sense for their context, because it's not always the same.
Yeah, two questions actually. Do you worry at all about the quality of the data that the people use with your products? What you showed, Twitter with sentiment analysis, that seems pretty clean and neat and consensual to do, but some data sets are messy, so is there any way that we can deal with that with your product? And then the second question is, well, if you have a big data set, it's quite easy to find correlations everywhere, right? So do you have methodological concerns embedded in the software to, I don't know, do you have warning signs to help people deal with the data in a smart way, basically?
Yeah, so that's something that we're beginning to think about. I would say at the very core, the problem we're ultimately trying to solve is how do we make working with the data easy, not necessarily the way that you are going to then use what you found in the data, but actually managing and storing, moving around, channeling all this information. That's the really difficult problem we solved first, because a lot of organizations have that problem, especially when you're talking about working with real-time data and historic data in the same environment. So you might have 50 gigs of historic news articles, but you're collecting a gig of Twitter data every day, right? How do you work with those two previously unrelated areas in one environment? So that's the first problem that we're solving. Now that we're a little bit more mature in our products and who we're working with, we're starting to look at ways of bringing some of the data science elements, some of the best practices and statistics back into the product, so that we're not helping people come up with misleading use cases, but it's an ongoing process.
Any other questions? Anyone? Going once, going twice.
Really break the computer that bad?
All right. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause.